24/7, 365. The fantasy season never dies. Welcome to Every Day is Draft Day. Presented by Champions Round.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the latest edition of Every Day is Draft Day. I'm your host, Dan Turner. Joining me, as always, with that cool-ass hat, Steffi Smalls. What's up, Steph?
What is up? My hat is pretty cool. It's hot as heck outside. Even Kaya, once again, does not want to go outside. She keeps stopping and laying down on our neighbors' yards, but that's all right. Whatever.
Yeah, that's fine. It is summertime, so it'll be hot. So Kaya just has to deal with it.
She'll get used to it. She'll be okay. She needs to stop being a brat.
Right. So today on Every Day is Draft Day, as our wonderful title alludes to, we'll be talking some tight ends, redraft tight ends to be specific. So Steph and I each have two tight ends we want to talk about, and as always, I will be going first because that's how we do it. Per usual. All right. So the number one tight end I want to talk about is Dalton Schultz.
No, that's what I'm going to talk about. That's all right. We'll just build off of it.
What I'm going to talk about is Dallas Goedert. Fine. All right. So Dallas Goedert, he was, for most of his career, he's been behind / playing with Zach Ertz, who's now currently in Arizona. He's developed a solid rapport with Jalen Hurts, and everyone is talking about how the acquisition of AJ Brown is going to affect Goedert. And I honestly think it's going to help him. Honestly, I think that with two receivers finally on the outside that actually demand attention, I think this is the first time in the history of my life that the Eagles have two receivers that are worth a damn on the outside. I think that opens up the middle for Goedert really well. I think that he's the unquestioned number one tight end on the Eagles, and I think he has a really strong possibility of jumping into that top five. Honestly, this year. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, and I was telling you before, I started finally working on my rankings, and I started with tight ends since that's what, we're doing anyways. And I had a hard time with him because I think, there is a strong argument for him in 5, given his season last year. I think that Ertz is gone, like you said. I think a lot of this AJ Brown, you're seeing this across the league, across fantasy. Everyone gets so scared. Again, here we go again. When offenses are productive, I literally don't care. And I think this is going to be an offense that has a very easy schedule that is going to score points. And so I started having a hard time where to put him. He could go in 5, or you put him, 7, 8. I also can understand why, because it's not that there isn't even a Devontae Smith there. But again, I think that this offense, it will have enough to feed everyone.
Mm-hmm. I think overall, 6 is probably the lowest I'll go on him. Yeah. Depending on, I think top 5 for me in no specific order: Andrews, Kelsey, Schultz, Pitts, and Kittle. And then Goedert for me somewhere in there, or even after that, I'd be fine with. I just think, this year is really going to, jump into that upper echelon where he's going to stick around for a long time. And, as some of these other tight ends, Kelsey is going to be aging. He's the number one receiver now in Kansas City. So we don't know how that's going to affect him without Tyreek Hill there. So he's a question mark. Obviously, he's still mega talented. Schultz, we'll see. A lot of the top tight ends, a lot of their big offensive weapons left. There's no Hollywood Brown anymore for Andrews or Tyreek Hill or Amari Cooper for Schultz. So we'll have to see, how they deal with the added attention that a lot of these receivers had taken off them before that aren't available there now. So I think, with Goedert, getting, one of those elite receivers and having Devontae Smith on the other side, I think that he will be, one of the top guys, especially in the red zone for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think last year he finished tight end 8, and you don't have guys like Gronkowski there gonna finish ahead of him. We always normally have some type of little bit of a surprise because the tight end, after those top guys, you can make an argument, I think, for quite a few, and he's definitely one of them. Another one is Dalton Schultz, who I know you are very high on, and I was not very kind to you. This is why I wanted you to pick someone else, because I am on board now. His ADP right now is tight end 7, and he finished the year with tight end 3. And I don't know why people are kind of saying that this is going to be a breakout year for him. If that's your argument, that's a little bit silly because last year, what you could make an argument was his breakout year, averaging over 12 points a game and also very reliable, playing 17 games. Next year is going to be the first time that we see him not having to split targets with another tight end. He's that clear, just exactly what his role is. He's the tight end one. And on top of that, too, there's a strong argument to be made that he could potentially be the number 2 passing option, too, there for Dak. I think that you don't have Cooper anymore, who people really forget. Dak played best when Cooper was on that field. He plays best when Zeke is heavily involved. We've seen Zeke not be as heavily involved. We don't have Cooper. Then Gallup is going to be out for we're not sure how long. The 2 games last year without Cooper, he saw an average of 43 routes in 7.5 targets. And then you also saw his targets increase over the last 2 seasons. Last year, I think he had over the entire year, somewhere right over 6. There's a very strong argument to make. I guess I didn't even realize how well he finished. And I think a lot of that comes from, when Cooper is out, when Zeke isn't playing well, he is a very nice option for Dak. And he kind of quietly was. All of a sudden, people are, not realizing exactly what he was able to do. Another offense that's, we don't know exactly how it's going to look. And I know we talked about this on one of our shows. We're not positive how that wide receiver room is going to totally play out, and I think he played I was looking back to 2020, and since 2020, when Jarwin wasn't on the field, he was averaging still over 33 routes ran per game. And that the only tight end that I think has more than that is Kelsey, and maybe I think it might just be Kelsey, but still just such a strong argument for him. And again, if you can get him at tight end 7, even if you reach for him, at tight end 6, at tight end 5, I don't like overpaying for guys, but again, you're getting a very strong tight end option there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I think that the whole, breakout thing is a little silly considering he was tight end 3 last year. I don't know, how you could say he's going to break out this year when he did it last year. But you're exactly right. I mean, he's trusted by Dak. Jarwin isn't there anymore. He's really, really flying under the radar, honestly, with all the top tight end talk. Especially after the year he had. I don't think anyone's really, said that he finished as high as he did. No one's giving him the kind of credit I think he deserves for being as good as he was last year, which is surprising to me. I think now, especially with Amari Cooper gone. It's basically CeeDee Lamb, and then you can make the argument that he's a number 2 option now in that offense. And Dallas is going to throw a lot. So I don't see how, with his ADP being, at, would you say, tight end 7 or 6?
Yeah, I think he's going tight end 7. That's on, tight end 7 on Sleeper, but he finished tight end 3. And there's such a strong argument that his, for him, for his fantasy value has only improved. I think his ceiling is somewhere at that tight end 3. I'm not comfortable putting him any higher than that. I think on my own so far, I had him at 5. Again, haven't really finalized anything. But when I went back to look at him, I can't even believe I have him as high as I do. But it's hard not to because of the way that the offense looks, the picture of it next year. And we see these guys when a lot of these teams do have shifts in what we're used to, they rely on what they know and what Dak knows is Schultz.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great point. It's definitely a guy I'm going to be looking at, especially in my redraft leagues to try to hopefully pick up later on than I probably should be getting him. So it's something I'm excited for. Okay, so my second tight end is actually going to be someone you mentioned a little bit earlier, and that's Hunter Henry.
Another guy, when I started my rankings, I started being a lot higher on. I was like, crap, I didn't realize how well he did last year.
Yeah. Hunter Henry is currently going as tight end 14 in terms of ADP, which is crazy to me. He was tight end number 7 overall last year, playing 16 games. So I think that, the New England Patriots didn't really add much in the way of receiver help. They added Devontae Parker and then Tyquan Thornton in the draft. So, I don't see much in the way of obstacles that Henry can't, come close or even repeat what he did last season. It wasn't like he did, some like ridiculous year. He had 600 yards. And what was it, like 9 touchdowns? Yeah, the touchdown, you'll probably have some touchdown regression, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, even if he goes down to like 7 or 6, that's still going to be a solid 10. I think that he has clearly leaped over Jonnu Smith as the number 1 tight end there in New England. I think he's going to be the receiving tight end there. And I think with Mac Jones' continued development, the New England system is based around their tight ends. That's been that way since as long as Belichick has been there.
It's a tale as old as time. And no one likes two tight end sets the way that he does. 12 personnel is like his jam.
Right, exactly. So I think that going at tight end 14, the same thing with Schultz. He's going a lot later than what his production last year showed he should be going. So it's the kind of the similar vein there. I think that he's a really trusted weapon in Belichick's offense. I think Mac Jones is going to throw to him often, and there really isn't this like game-breaking receiver to scare me into thinking that he's going to lose this like whole bunch of production and tank this season.
Right. And even looking at this too, like I don't love to look at this stuff, but he has the 5th easiest schedule for tight ends going into next year. I think a lot of people were hurt by Jonnu Smith, and by a lot of people, I mean myself. I was much higher on Jonnu. I thought, the consistency that we got, you kind of knew you're getting year in, year out with Jonnu. Then he went to New England. I thought it was a perfect scenario. And then Hunter Henry ended up being the guy, and that's okay. So he's someone that I'm definitely willing to go ahead and draft. I feel more comfortable, I think people are taking Kmet and those type of guys ahead of Hunter Henry. But I think that it's a safer, higher floor, in my opinion. So I feel more comfortable that way. Again, like after Henry, then it just starts to get weird. And then I start going for guys like this. So everyone knows that I love to not be – these are guys that especially late rounds, like – if you're going to pass on the top guys and you want to take a dark horse type of dude, and I'm not going to say Daniel Bellinger for the 70th time, but I do think Daniel Bellinger, but I will not because I've talked about him on at least 17 shows. But I think Irv Smith Jr. So, his ADP right now is going anywhere from like 17 to 21. I've seen him go later than that in my own personal drafts. And people forget that going into last season, we were all so excited that was going to be, his breakout year. Then he gets hurt. He tears his meniscus in the preseason. He should be ready for week 1. He's super athletic. He has high draft capital. He has all the things that we really like in these tight ends. And yeah, you didn't see him. But again, this is what happens every year that people don't see someone and then it's like all of a sudden they stink. He's still a phenomenal athlete. Reports coming out are that he looks really, really good. In 2020, he played behind Rudolph. He still managed to get 365 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns, and that's on minimal time, minimal snaps. I think he's a nice red zone, weapon for the Vikings, who, they relied heavily on Conklin, who's also gone. I was higher on Conklin actually than Irv going into last year. Ironically, now, Conklin's gone. I think they're in a really good spot. They didn't add a tight end or a wide receiver in the draft. I think that they've always been a team that does involve their tight end fairly heavily, actually, surprisingly so. And he's really, really cheap for a guy that is definitely going to get an increased volume just off of the fact that they don't have another tight end option there, and off of what we saw him do and what he was capable of in 2020. Just because he wasn't there that second year, I don't think that means that a breakout is not possible. I just really like the upside here because if he does end up doing what I think he's capable of, I think that he will end up being a steal.
No, I think that's a really good pick, and someone when I was researching for the show, I was surprised to see that he was only still 23 years old. So
he's young.
I didn't, I knew he wasn't been around long, but I didn't think he was going to be that young. And it's funny that, in terms of ADP, Kmet is above both Henry and Irv Smith Jr., and I would take both of them over him. Honestly, I think that, when people say, with Adam Thielen, slowing down because of age, and everyone always is on like, Justin Jefferson or your KJ Osborne, and no one really seems to ever mention Irv Smith as someone that can benefit from that. honestly. And he you said it perfectly. You're gone for a year and people just forget you exist. It's like he never existed. I haven't heard pretty much anything about him in any tight end discussions anywhere really this offseason before this, honestly. So even me is guilty of that somewhat of forgetting about him. But that's something that you can use to your advantage. You can take him much later on because no one is taking him anywhere. Really, no one is taking him in the first top 15 guys. So
right.
I expect, and you spelled that perfectly. He's definitely a guy that that you liked in 2020. Just because he wasn't there in 2021 doesn't mean he can't go back and reproduce and even build on what he did 2 years ago. So I think that with all the love we seem to be giving KJ Osborne, with stepping up with Thalen, running out of gas, getting up there in age, I think we should definitely be shifting some of that love over to Irv Smith Jr. as well, and we're definitely not doing that at all.
Yeah, well, I'm actually getting much higher on him the more we talk about it. I mean, it's crazy to me because we're watching guys and again, I understand these are different positions, but this is just the first thing comes to mind is you look at guys, right, like ETN, for example. His value has now suddenly skyrocketed. Everyone is back in on him. And this is a guy that we've seen has potential. He was everyone's potential breakout candidate. I remember getting into arguments with people because I was team Conklin and they were team Irv Smith. I wasn't sold on him yet. But he has such large potential to be a seriously significant contributor on a team that has a pretty narrow target tree. I mean, he wouldn't even really need to contribute that much. And everyone knows that are friends of the show, we like teams that have productive offenses. And if anything, this team is going to get much better offensively, but they still always rank in the top half of the entire league in every offensive stat. So why can't this guy come out who's still very young? So his body has the potential to be healing much better than mine would or yours would, on top of also being he's a freak athlete. He's 6'2", 240 plus pounds, 23 years old. His, strength of schedule for tight ends, again, I always take that with a grain of salt, but 14th is favorable. So, and they play the NFC East, they have a nice schedule. So I think that Irv Smith is someone that needs to be looked at. And I think I'm going to go out and try and get him. I wonder if I can flip some of these guys, and I'm going to try to make some Irv Smith trades.
Yeah, I think I might actually do that too. Even going back and looking at his 2020 stats.
I know.
He was tight end, I think 20 that year. I mean, which isn't, great, but he was still a really young player. And it was only his second
But that's
year.
Also splitting everything with Rudolph, and he didn't play everything.
Exactly.
He played 13 games in 2020, then 16 in 2019. He's only played 29 total games, and he's freaking 23. I think he was taken 50th overall. I could be totally wrong on that. I don't remember. I think Minnesota took him in the second round, so maybe 50th. I might have pulled that out of nowhere. But I think that he's definitely worth taking a look at. And even if you have some, he might be a nice guy that you can, even try to offload some of those duds on your roster and just at least stick him on your bench for even dynasty purposes. The kid's really young and we know how tight ends roll. So he could start cooking with gas. I actually want to, in the YouTube comments, I kind of want people to respond about Irv Smith and let's get a temperature check on how people feel about him.
Absolutely. I agree. And you're absolutely right. Just looking over now, just looking over the 2020 stats, he basically split 50-50 with Kyle Rudolph, and Conklin even had a couple catches in there too. So if you give him all, not obviously that's not a one-to-one comparison, but if you give him all the targets that the three of them got 2 years ago, there's a lot of potential for him to easily get into that TE1 those top 12 tight ends rankings easily.
Right, and we all know I love a guy that doesn't fumble the ball, so he's one of them, and that's my own PTSD. But again, for me, it's once you get to that bottom end there, I would rather just wait, pass on where people are taking Evan Ingram and those type of guys. I'd rather just wait and then go and take Irv Smith and get a bunch of, I might have to swap them out and plug and play some guys. But if he starts cooking, I actually really like it, especially if someone goes down in that offense, like knock on wood and fingers crossed because they have a lot of them. But again, a really nice option.
Yeah. I think even if no one does get hurt in Minnesota, I think there's more than enough targets to go around to make him a viable, fantasy week to week starter if he can stay healthy. I really do think so. So that's a really good one by the side. Something that
look at us agreeing so much. It's like making me a little sick.
Right?
I definitely want him over Cameron Brate. None of you are going to convince me to. I am not drafting Cameron Brate. I don't care. He's 100 freaking years old. Like, seriously.
Is never going to be a thing. We can just stop. We can stop saying that Cameron Brate is going to replace Gronk because he's not. He didn't do as good as Gronk before Gronk got there, and he's not going to do as good as Gronk after Gronk left. So
it literally took the announcement of him getting retired, and everyone's like, he has tight end 1 upside. I'm like, can everyone calm down? It's been literally 10 seconds. 10 seconds.
Right.
Just calm down.
I honestly take a shot on that Cade rookie they drafted over.
Right?
At his price, honestly.
Right.
Take it over on. Yeah.
Not a fan.
Right. Exactly. All right, so that'll do it for this episode of Every Day is Draft Day. We're going to have another episode coming next week, later on this week with our Hot Takes and Pancakes episode, which is always a lot of fun with Jeff Hasley because Jason will once again not be there. So, Steph, you want to tell everyone how your 32-team previews are going?
Yes, finally almost done with the AFC North. Yesterday, I previewed the Ravens. Bengals are coming up, then I will be done. And then switching things up, I need to finish up the AFC South. But those are a lot of fun, and they're on Spotify, YouTube, everything. Still on Twitter, but sometimes it's hard to find those videos. Then we have Daily Dozen. We're doing a big board showdown, which is so much fun. I actually want to do one when we get off. It's been a while since that. I know Jason and I are working on some cards and favorite props for the NBA draft. I will have one for travelers for golf. A lot of good stuff.
Yeah. We're busy. We're busy bees over here at
busy bees. That's for sure.
Yeah, but definitely check out the Big Board Showdown. That's running because of the NBA draft, which is on tomorrow. I think tomorrow, right? Thursday.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have until tomorrow to sign up for that. So definitely check that out. And definitely check out all of Steph's stuff, all her previews, Daily Dozen, her shows. Check out Gambling with Gold with Jason. And check out our Discord as well. So I believe that'll be it. We'll see you guys on Friday and have a good rest of the day.